Shepard Commander, it is recommended that we recruit Mike the Birdman for their superior geek knowledge. This would increase our chances of success against the old machines. The Gath consensus has infiltrated this week in geek.net, and we find it adequate for our needs.
Nerd! Ooh, check that shit out, man, the internet. Let's see if those wrote something new about us or that stupid-ass flick.
Something you want to add to this briefing, Captain Hiller?
No, sir. I'm just a little anxious to get up there and whoop E.T.'s ass, that's all.
All right, look. There's only one return, okay? And it ain't of the king, it's of the Jedi.
That man is playing Galaga. Thought we wouldn't notice, but we did.
I'm running this monkey farm now, Frankenstein, and I want to know what the you're doing with my time.
Would you like to know more?
Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to This Week in Geek.net's Future Imperfect. This is the show where we here at This Week in Geek discuss all things science fiction, science fact, and speculative, and all sorts of fun things in between. I am one of your hosts this evening or morning. I don't know when you're listening to this. Either way, I'm Mike the Birdman. But I'm not alone as we travel through this bizarre kind of pairing of AI and weaponization of technology. We're going to joined by my brother, who I'm pretty sure is not an AI, from the city of Kitchener, Ontario, Canada.
Alex, the producer. I was going to scream, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
And see, when you do that, it clips completely out. Nobody can hear anything anyway.
Well, damn it. And then we're also joined by probably the smartest person I know from Lansing, Michigan.
I'm Aaron Pollyea.
All right, guys. So this is a thing that I want to say the pairing for this came to be either in a fever dream, because as of this recording, I'm just getting over COVID. It sucks, and I hate it. And
it's funny how you've had it like 6 times, and I was somehow spared even once.
Yeah, well, you never go outside.
I did. Everybody around me got it. Like my people I live with got it, and I didn't get it.
You're lucky. Like it's it's been rough this last year, but anyway.
People will want my plasma.
Yeah, exactly. So this pairing comes from a pair of movies from the 1990s. Just seems to be one of my favorite times to talk about movies. Like pretty much from like, I want to say about 2003 to about maybe 1983, somewhere in there is typically where I'm finding a lot of comfort. But this pair of movies is, I remember seeing them both as a child and one later with a girlfriend. So the two movies we're going to be talking about tonight is 1999, I want to say, or 1998, the movie Virus with Jamie Lee Curtis, Donald Sutherland, and the other movie we're going to be talking about is Screamers with Peter Weller, which is RoboCop, which is really, we found out that it's a Canadian movie, which is kind of interesting. And both of these movies were considered financial flops and commercial flops, not commercial, critical flops during their time, although Screamers did a little bit better in retrospect. And thanks to Alex and I having a late night conversation, I found out there was a sequel to this. We're not talking about the sequel. It was direct to DVD, and I want to say 2009. But to kind of get things started here, we're going to talk about Virus. And I remember when this movie was advertised, I remember I'd never quite seen anything like the mechanical effects for it. Now, because this was after Star Trek First Contact, where I'd really seen more mechanical beings in the Borg and cybernetics and all that shit. This was something I'd never seen really done in terms of practicality. And I remember the advertising for this movie showing all the biomechanical weird body horrorness of what this movie was. And I remember the captain character played by Donald Sutherland being very iconic and prominent in the advertising for this movie. And truth be told, I hadn't seen a lot of Jamie Lee Curtis movies. And truth be told, I really haven't still. I've only seen her in True Lies, some Halloween movies, Freaky Friday, maybe one or two other small things.
Oh, you're missing some important ones like Blue Steel.
And it's weird. Like, I'm not...
Aaron snickers because he knows why.
Yeah.
I find myself, I'm not the biggest fan of Jamie Lee Curtis, and I hope, like, I don't know. I feel like that's blasphemous to say that because she has done some really fantastic work. I want to say I really liked her in the Halloween reboot by David Green. I want to say the most recent Halloween trilogy.
Like, how can you disparage the star of Borderlands the movie?
Oh,
Oh.
my head melt. I think I called Alex when I watched that. Yes, it was either, I remember calling Alex and bitching about this for 20 minutes on my drive home.
My brother and I went to see it. I think it was the opening day because we knew it was going to be bad when it had like 0 on Rotten Tomatoes. There were about 30 people there. I have never seen that many people leave the movie.
Yeah.
But more than half of the people left, and I sat there with my brother laughing and then like head in hands going like, what is this? What is this? And we're leaving and they're like, so did you enjoy it? We're like, no, this is one of the worst things I've ever seen, as we cackled with laughter. And I was like, I don't think it was the same day. It was maybe the next day. I was like, Mike, don't bother. It's terrible. You're like, I've got to get out and see something. And and like I looked at my phone and all it was what did I do with my life?
Yeah, it was astounding how bad it was.
I'm glad I haven't seen it. Even though I love the Borderlands games, I'm glad I haven't seen it.
It's wild that they managed to mess it up.
That's the problem. Is it's not even, there's nothing exciting, even if you've never played the games, or if you have played the games, it's almost nothing to do with them. There's almost nothing that happens in the movie. And it was like 35 individual cut up segments that they filmed individually and then used like Scotch tape to piece together as a movie.
Yeah, it's pretty atrocious.
Sorry for dragging everybody off topic.
Sorry. But
Yeah.
To go back to Virus. So again, when I finally sat down to watch this, I probably saw this, I want to say it was around 2002 or something. I'd just broken up with a different girlfriend and I started seeing somebody else. So this girl's family had money, and I remember watching this on this huge like home theater, and I'm thinking, all right, this is gonna be awesome. And I remember watching it and I'm thinking, you know what? It's okay. And when I went back and revisited this movie in the last week or so, I've probably watched it twice. I like it a lot more than what I thought. It's very much a popcorn streaming type of movie, something you can just throw on for noise. You can literally just walk in and out of when this movie starts. But one thing I'm going to mention before I throw it to Alex is I found out there is a weird amount of pseudo marketing around this. There was a complete toy line I found out, and it's very reasonable to get these toys, which is kind of weird. I had no idea there were action figures made for this. They're not very good looking, unfortunately. And there was a European-only PlayStation 1 video game based upon this movie that has nothing to do with it. Just the fact there's a virus and it's in a building.
A lot of it screams like money laundering. Whenever I hear like European only game tied into American movie flop, that's what screams like somebody had to spend money or they'd lose their budget, sort of thing.
Yeah, like, and it's wild. Like, I didn't expect this movie to even have any tie-in merchandise. And then the final thing I'm going to mention about this is, for some reason, the image of Jamie Lee Curtis in that yellow rain jacket really stuck with me as a kid, where I thought that was from a different movie.
You know why? It's because AMC used like screenshots and clips of that when they would splice together their movie night marathon stuff.
Oh.
You know, you remember they used to do that, where they'd take like a bunch of clips of stuff on a specific theme and they would set it to a song like I don't know, Holding Out for a Hero or different things. They would do
kind
that,
of like the Paramount thing, right?
Like the Paramount one. They would do those things for AMC, and a lot of times that would get reused when we first got AMC in Canada, but even before that, they would be used sometimes in like syndication packages. So whenever there was like a package of advertising, like a bunch of Universal Pictures sort of sci-fi things, you'd have like that image of her in it for like years on TV.
Okay, so it's just okay. Oh wow, I had no idea.
I think more people have seen clips of this movie in like promo and commercial spots than have actually seen the movie.
Wild. Okay, Alex. So, what's your experience with this movie?
I remember my mom wanting to rent it because she liked Jamie Lee Curtis, and we rented it when it came out. And I remember this is one of those ones where I knew it didn't do well in theaters because it was within like 3 months it hit home video, which was unheard of.
Very
Even,
fast turnaround.
Like in the 90s, you still had to wait 6 months to a year before it would even like this was one of those cases where I don't think Blockbuster had like exclusivity on rentals first. I think it hit like home video to buy and rent the same day. So I was like, even then as a kid, I was like, this is probably not going to be that good. And I remember watching it, and you know what I thought when we watched it? I thought even then I was like, the special effects look like what if like David Cronenberg's The Fly merged with Short Circuit.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like the one bad guy in it was like, what if Johnny Five was like mutated by the transportation machine?
Yeah, okay.
Well, yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah.
But there is some really interesting looking special effects. I can say that. I remember renting it. I remember we watched it. I remembered zero things about this movie until I watched it yesterday. And like, I mean, zero. And I was like, oh, and after watching, I'm like, oh, that's why. Because this movie is very meh. It's like, eh. I have a couple little notes here that I wrote down. One, the music doesn't match what's happening.
Yeah.
It sounds like a more grand score for a movie that this wasn't.
Yeah.
Two, that in this film, William Baldwin, who is usually one of the good Baldwins, is doing his best impression of Stephen Baldwin acting in a movie. And this is probably the worst performance he's ever done. Donald Sutherland is just, I feel like he wasn't taking direction and he was just doing whatever he felt like.
I think he was just told, be a sea captain.
Be a sea captain. Be a sea captain who is a little aloof
Angry.
and is also not going to take any of my directions. And that's what it felt like he was doing. And then beyond that, there's a decent like supporting cast in here.
Sure, there's lots.
Cliff Curtis,
Marshall Bell surprised me.
Yeah, Marshall Bell, but Cliff Curtis is one of his earlier roles that I remember at least seeing. And he was good. There's a couple interesting deaths in this. That's about it.
Okay,
that's all. The one actor that played Richie Sherman, he has a good death. But basic premise, this felt like something that worked as an Outer Limits episode, but not as a $75 million movie.
Well, I didn't even know this was based on a comic book. Like, this was like a Dark Horse comic book before. I think it was like a 3-issue or 5-issue miniseries. It didn't last very long. And it kind of shows, like, as you mentioned, it's held together by Scotch tape and what looks like hope but is not. Yeah, it's very strange. Aaron, what has been your experience with this
I've
movie?
never seen it. The first time I saw it was like 2 days ago when I watched it. My general notes are, I thought the most interesting thing about the movie was trying to spot Soviet Cold War gear in the background. Like, everything in it is either I want to skip over it because it's just gore with like metal bones and like red headlights for eyes, or it's meaningless dialogue. Like, not bad. The acting's fine, the dialogue's fine, but it just didn't do anything for me. But I was more interested in looking at the background stuff, and I could very clearly see that this was a US ship that just had Soviet stuff put in it and Cyrillic writing put everywhere. Yeah, it's very obviously a US manufactured ship. But yeah, I mean, I saw some pretty cool gas masks. I saw some guerrilla style gas masks, which were great. Yeah.
Like there is like the best aspects of this movie really are, I guess, the visual presentation.
Yeah.
It looks cool.
And that's because the director
John Bruno, right?
yeah, he came from the world of being a special visual effects supervisor. I think this is the only live action movie he ever directed.
And don't get me wrong, I don't hate this film at all. It's fine.
No, it's just it's very blah.
Yeah.
Like overall, like it feels like you know what? It feels like a TV movie that had a supercharged budget.
It
Um,
yeah, it does, and I don't think that they thought through the plot very well. I will say that if I had one complaint, why is the robot artificial intelligence doing any of this with biological material? Because it's just making them weaker.
This doesn't make any sense.
Ba-
Yeah, exactly.
Basically, let's run down the plot very quickly.
Yeah.
The plot for this is Russian research vessel encounters energy source in quotes
From space, sort of like it gets like a rogue transmission from the
Yeah.
Soviet Mir space station, I think.
which you know ends up having a virus that infects all the technology. It is trying to survive in quotes and stay alive, and starts to mutilate the crew, turn them into cyborg robot hybrids, and they're trying to blow up the ship so that and then an American crew of a regular vessel decide they want to blow up the ship to stop it from spreading into all of our electronics, and then eventually killing all of humanity to spread itself.
Yeah, because they're like, when the good people, which is Jamie Lee Curtis and I'm just gonna call Donald Sutherland the sea captain from here on forward. They basically, their ship has been damaged. They're basically part of like a salvage crew. They discover this Russian ship dead in the water. Like, hey, look, guys, this thing's gonna be worth a shit ton to the Russian government. They go aboard, shenanigans ensues. They're like, why is all the electronics smashed? What the hell's going on? And then, as Alex described, they're like, this computer virus has gained sentience in the ship's computers. They want to get to another location just outside of New Zealand or New Guinea or something. There's a Russian listening post there which can uplink with other satellites. So this sentient computer virus can spread itself through our communications networks. And for some reason, Donald Sutherland, or the sea captain, makes a deal with the computer virus because it recognizes him as the quote unquote dominant life form. And yeah, and he betrays the crew because he's like, I want to get paid all this money, but everyone's like, hey, money's not going to matter if we're fucking dead. And there's like one surviving Russian scientist, this woman whose husband was turned into one of these Borg-like creatures, and she fights along with Jamie Lee Curtis and the bad Baldwin, and it gets
it's sad because it's probably the best actor Baldwin doing the worst performance. It's like at least Daniel Baldwin is always interesting in all the terrible shit he does.
Yeah, and
but Stephen Baldwin has never put in a good performance, and this was Stephen Baldwin level.
Yeah, like there's just no charisma to this. And Jamie Lee Curtis did an interview, I want to say back in 2019, and they were talking about her I want to say it was either a major publication or maybe it was like a podcast or something, whatever. And she's like, this is one of the worst movies I've ever been in. I can see that. I really can. But it's weird. I don't think
it's that bad. It's not that bad.
Yeah, I find it entertaining, but it's not great.
I think it's the most disappointing high budget movie she's done.
Yeah, I could see that.
Because you got to consider this was like, as far as her career,
this is after True Lies.
This is after True Lies. This is right after, like, she had done, some dramedy, interesting, like medium to lower budget pictures, but basically she was coming off of the high of True Lies and the return in Halloween H2O.
And Freaky Friday, which would follow a couple of years later.
But this was her follow-up to those two big hits, plus a bunch of medium level. So like this was like, big blockbuster action movie starring her, and I remember them marketing her big in this because of how well she did and how well received True Lies was. So people thought, oh, she's doing another big action movie. This time it's not with, Arnold. And it flopped. So,
yeah. Like, this movie did not do well. And it's weird because the person who produced this is Gail Ann Hurd. That's James Cameron's, at the time. I think they were divorced, I'm not sure. And even John Bruno, that's a guy who's gotten Oscar nominations for stuff. He directed one part of Heavy Metal. He did some Star Trek Voyager episodes. He did Terminator 2 Battle Across Time, which was the 3D ride at Universal. So it's not like he didn't know how to make shit look cool.
Well, no, look cool is the key point.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
He's the guy behind all the special effects in Ghostbusters, Poltergeist series. He was the visual effects designer for like all the robotic parts for Arnold in Terminator 2. So like he has, and he did Cliffhanger, True Lies, like and then after that he continued to have a bigger career, like X-Men Last Stand, Alien vs Predator. He's the visual effects supervisor for the Avatar movies. So like this guy knows his visual effects. But that doesn't translate to being able to understand how to direct a script.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
100%. And it sucks too, because like there's some really neat looking visual stuff. Like when you look at the virus infected drones that are flesh creatures, like there's one that I like because they talk about it because they're like, why does this smell? And it looks like a giant fly that's obviously put together from bits of meat from parts of the crew. The virus is trying to evolve itself, and they're like, okay, there's like a simple 4-legged drone. There's something that can fly. Eventually they run across the woman's husband who's been turned into this Borg-like creature with a gun built into his arm, which is really a kind of cool looking special effect. And then eventually they come across this like meat mech that has like part of a human skull. And like it looks very clearly inspired from the comic book. And it, like Alex said, it looks amazing.
Yeah.
But there's nothing behind it.
Johnny Five meets Atom Smasher from Cyberpunk.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good way to actually describe that. Actually,
and I'll say, like, I think you could have done it just as neat without any of like the body horror stuff. Like, that does. People that have listened to these a long time know that I hate body horror stuff. It just disgusts me. It doesn't make me feel like. I don't care that it looks good or it's well done. It's just like, oh, I don't want to watch that.
And you know me, I will tend to like that stuff unless it goes to the extreme. Like I can't watch Tetsuo the Iron Man. It
or
curdles
Meatball Machine.
It curdles me too much. Like it's beyond that. This was just past the threshold of where I felt comfortable with it. And I think it wouldn't have bothered me if it was presented in a different style, but it was kind of off-putting how the tone of this movie was with it.
Yeah.
It's just like they're just sort of there, and it's also really gross. If they had like built up to this like horrific reveal, then I would have been like, "Oh my god, that's horrifying," and it would have been effective for that shot. But they didn't.
It's there a lot. Yeah.
My last thought in this is, I'm happy to see Quado got some work after Total Recall.
Marshall Bell. Yeah,
that was it. I was like, oh, Quado, and I was thinking, oh, are they gonna have like a robot come out of his belly? But nope.
Yeah. My final thought on this is it's hard to find this movie. Like we had a bit of a time tracking this down, and is it worth putting effort into watch? I'm gonna say no, but if you can randomly find it on like a service like Tubi or whatever, like if you could find it just by typing it in, sure, but do not go out of your way to watch it.
I had to find a German Blu-ray to be able to have a copy for us to all watch.
Yeah. Ooh. No, I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend it.
No. If
don't hate it though.
It's just there. That's the best way to describe it. It exists. It's not even peak 90s in the way that you would think. Peak 90s is, over the top explosions, but exciting. There's nothing exciting in this movie.
It's got style, but no flair, if that makes any kind of sense. And I buy Jamie Lee as a smart hero. I don't buy her as an action hero. Like I see her as the thinking woman from I guess the earlier Halloweens. The most I think she's ever gotten as to being a fucking badass is in the first Halloween reboot from 2018, where
This
she's
movie,
basically Sarah Connor.
to me, what this screamed was Universal wanted their own like Sigourney Weaver Ripley, and they
Yeah,
didn't
I
they
can see
didn't
that.
deliver it.
Yeah.
So anyway, on to a good movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, on to a good
Very
movie.
good. Yeah.
So Screamer. So this movie again, 1995, Screamers. This movie is something I remember. I think I saw the advertisement on a trailer on some other movie at the time I'd rented at the video store. Like as a kid growing up, my high school was right beside this place that it was a Blockbuster, but then real Blockbuster came to town and they're like, you're not doing that. And then the video store got renamed to Gamma Video. And I remember going in there.
They were a knockoff Blockbuster.
Yeah, it was wild because they had to change their name. So one of our history teachers owned the video store, and I used to know her daughter. She was cute, and I used to go in there just to say hi. And anyway, and I'm browsing the sci-fi section, and I see this because I saw the advertisement on some other movie. I'm like, okay, let's give this a whirl. And I didn't remember a lot of it until I rewatched it again the other night. The main reason this got my attention is because robots, cool. RoboCop, even better, because this is Peter Weller, and I haven't seen him in a lot that isn't RoboCop. In fact, maybe I've seen him in maybe 2 or 3 other movies. Like I've never seen Naked Lunch, and I know that's a huge gap.
That is, when people say like, "Oh, you should take substances to really enjoy this movie." You shouldn't when you watch that movie because it'll make even less sense and give you nightmares.
Oh no.
So going
Naked Lunch is a very okay. It's the Cronenberg movie that even he was surprised he was able to complete because it's one of those stories that's almost not. It's one of those books that's everybody said couldn't be adapted, and then he said, "Hold my beer," did it, and everybody watched it and went, I still don't think it could be. No, I still don't think it could be adapted. It's one of those. But it's not as gross as you would think. But it's odd. I'll say that.
So when I went into watching this again as a kid, this went a lot over my head. Probably just because I didn't understand a lot of sci-fi stuff. I was more into Star Wars and like Anne McCaffrey fantasy. So very shallow understanding of movies and sci-fi at the time. So coming back to watch this with a more refined eye and as a writer of sci-fi, still feels weird to say that phrase. I'm watching it, I'm thinking, I really like the opening intro, this like how they set up the world. And just watching this, I really like Peter Weller in this, like really like a lot, like almost man crush levels. And when I think of my interaction I've had with Peter Weller, obviously everybody talks to him about RoboCop. And if I'd saw this before I met him last year, and if I had just 5 more minutes, I really wish I could have told him that I really like him in this, because there's something about this very commanding screen presence to him and just the way that he portrays his character of Joe Hendrickson that I really like. And
he has a good energy in pretty much every role that he's in. It's not like you get off put by it, but every movie he's in, it's him because you can just feel it emanating.
Yeah, he's a very dedicated actor.
Oh yeah, for sure. And he did a podcast a couple years ago saying this is one of his favorite projects he's ever worked on. And I really think that comes through in his performance. I mean, there's like a weird sappy part at the end of this, but we'll kind of get there. But the thing that really attracted me to watching this as the second time around is I really like the idea behind the Screamers robots themselves, how they evolve over time. I think the idea of using them as a weapons platform is a little bit weird and kind of stupid. But when I went into the Wikipedia article reading about this, I realized, this kind of touches upon another sci-fi thing, which I think is terrifying yet awesome. And it's something called
Yeah.
gray goo. And gray goo is the idea of self-replicating machines like nanites or robots. Basically, again, to bring this to a Star Trek term, think of Borg nanoprobes, and they're just constantly reproducing. And the idea in a gray goo scenario is this could be something that ends the world. What do I mean by that? If it takes a cell, a robot, microscopic robot, takes a cell and breaks it down to make more of itself, what if that process runs out of control like a cancer and you have nothing left but gray goo on a planet?
You stopped watching Stargate literally a couple episodes before the replicator.
Or the replicators, exactly. Yeah, I know you were going to bring that
up. Which Lego Meccano spiders that it's been long enough that you might not ever watch it, but spoiler, as they get further in, they think they solve it. They come back to them later on in seasons, and they have basically evolved to the point where they're indistinguishable from humans, and they're getting to a point where they're crushing the planets that they're evolving on because their own mass is like where the planet has become like 90% them. So like
that's fucking sick.
So they're people think Stargate was just like the happy-go-lucky fun MacGyver show. They had a lot of really cool concepts in there that are touched upon in some of these really great sci-fi short stories and books from the 40s to like 60s. They did it. It's just not under the sheen of the Star Trek more stoic thing. It's the more happy-go-lucky adventure sci-fi is the best way to put it. But it doesn't mean it's any less thinking.
100%. Like, you know what? I kind of wonder maybe the next year with Stargate, because you're right, it has been a long enough time. Maybe I should start to revisit that series again, but that's something we'll talk about off air. But I'm going to throw it to you, Alex.
Yeah, for this movie.
Yeah, what do you think?
I mentioned it off air, but I rented it at a Jumbo Video, and they had put stickers on the box saying it was Canadian. I guess when maybe they were getting some kickback from the government for like putting on Canadian content stickers on movies that were Canadian, or purchasing a certain amount, or maybe they purchase so many of them when they get inspected they get a money back rebate or something. I don't know, but I was like, oh, Canadian sci-fi is probably going to be terrible, and I put it on and I was like, this was not terrible. And then I didn't see it. I probably rented it in like 97, 98, and then I didn't see it really until now. So I remembered very little other than I thought it was a cool movie, as a kid. But then I'm watching, I'm like, oh, this has all of the tropes and feelings of almost like a direct-to-video movie of the 90s when they had a budget, but maybe one step up from that, especially one or two steps up when it comes to some of the special effects. But there's almost what's more interesting to me about this film is like all the lore details and the world building and the little things around the scanners and all the little tech things they have. Even the fact that they added sound effects and things to like the scanners and everything so they have like a mechanical feel and sound. Everything looks and feels like it's a lived-in universe. That very surprising for being on a $14 million budget at that time, when there were movies that cost 2 or 3 times that and didn't have that kind of a feel. In watching it, the acting is pretty good. Mike, you'll notice that basically every actor is a Canadian like TV actor, except for Peter Weller.
Yeah, the one guy, Andrew Lauer, he played the private who survived the ship crash. It was fucking bothering me last night because I was watching this at like 3:00 in the morning, the right time, and I'm like, where the fuck do I know you from? And I'm staring at him, and it clicked. That's one of the best friends from Caroline in the City, which was a sitcom in the 90s, because I really had a thing for Leah Thompson, but more like her best friend I thought was really hot. But I always thought that guy was really fucking funny. And I used to get this guy mixed up with the guy who played Mythos on Highlander the series for some reason. Peter Wingard or something?
Wigfield.
Yeah, I used to get those two confused. So this is Peter Wigfield if bought from Temu.
The co-star Jennifer Rubin, what you probably recognize her from Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Yeah, she has the greatest haircut in that movie. The giant mohawk. Yeah.
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 Um,
I'm beautiful and bad.
Probably one of the sleepers in this was Roy Dupree. He played I guess one of the enemy soldiers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and is revealed to be a new model Screamer.
Becker, yeah.
I would say Americans probably would know him best from being in the La Femme Nikita TV show that was, I think, syndicated or on the WB or something. Up here, he's won like a bazillion awards. Um, a
A lot of Quebecy stuff. A lot of French.
Yes. A lot. Well, yeah, a lot of French, but I think Shake Hands with the Devil, which was about the Rwanda issues, like the war stuff. He won basically every Canadian award you can think of. Played like the Rocket in Maurice the Rocket Richard's biopic movie. Any time that there was like a bigger Canadian budgeted movie that was specifically like meant to be like Oscar nom stuff, he's one of those guys, and this is one of the earliest things that he did. So he was good in this, especially for being one of the Canadian actors where English is not their first language. Um, let me think. The one of the corporals, the one that's the communications officer, the actress there, Lenny Parker, she was the main antagonist of like several seasons of Roddenberry's Earth Final Conflict. She's one of the Talon evil ones.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, and I was like, it's a lot of people that were like sci-fi TV show people from Canada at the time. Like this is before the Sci-Fi Network in the States basically co-opted all the Canadian productions. So in watching it, I was like, oh, a lot of these people ended up going off and doing, other bigger roles. Trying to think. I recognized the voice of one of the actors in this. And it turns out it's because he was in like Dog City and other cartoons from the 90s. But yeah, it was interesting seeing the casting, the whole setup. I like the idea. I think they were limited a little bit by the CG because it was lower budget, but it looked pretty good considering it was only a $14 million budget. I didn't think the screamers, like the swords, the initial ones that are like the little mice running around on the ground with the razor blades in them, or the bandsaws, I didn't think they were convincing enough as like that looked very direct to video to me. I think it would have been better if we never saw them, or if when they popped up they were just like a ball with razors that blew up like a grenade. But they looked a little too much like an RC car for what they were doing. But basic idea is there is a war going on between the Alliance. Did they say what countries made up the Alliance, or did they
think they're like
avoid that?
Corporates type things. Yeah.
Yeah, corporate interests. Yeah.
Corporate interests. And then the other one was the New Economic Bloc, or NEB. So it's
corporate war.
I'm assuming it was like American corporate interests and then Euro-Asian corporate interests or something. That's what it was hinted at. Like essentially the Cold War over again, but active war. And the idea was that the NEB was a mining company primarily initially, and they were the primary miners of what was the
beryllium or something? Some new element or something?
A new element, and they said something like, what was it, like a spoonful of it could power your ship to go from Earth to Mars or something like that, or Jupiter in like 10 minutes or something.
Yeah, it was.
They make some vague reference to basically being like it's like a pinch of salt of it is enough to power a spaceship.
But it's highly
when you mine it,
it's not toxic.
When you mine it like it explodes radiation, like radioactive particles into the atmosphere.
Yeah,
like a bloom.
And it also makes it very difficult to clean it, and they have to process it. And because of this, it was eating away at the profits, and the mining consortium, or the NEB, decided that they were going to control the mines because they were the ones already mining it. And it started basically not just a Cold War, a full-blown war over who controls the mines. And they've been in this war for at least 5 years, I think they said.
Yeah.
at least
5 to 10, something like that.
on this planet, and Peter Weller's been there for 2 years. Um, and while this is going on, they believe they get they haven't seen a soldier from the opposite side. This is on some mining planet far away from Earth. They haven't seen an opposing soldier in 6 months. One shows up by himself with and gets obliterated by the screamers, and has basically a message saying, we want to have a peace agreement. Please send 2 of your soldiers. And right around that same time, they end up getting a holographic VR message from their leader in the Alliance, or a leader in the Alliance, telling them to, send, we've found a new planet. It's clean. We've been doing extensive testing. There's no radiation whatsoever in the mines, and we found a way to mine it where nobody will get hurt. We've worked out a deal. We're going to have the NEB do the mining like we did before. We'll do transportation and ownership. We'll split it. Blah blah blah. Peace can be brokered. All the while, a ship was trying to call for clearance for landing, and it was a civilian ship, supposedly. They didn't get it. Something happens to their ship. They crash land. They find a nuclear reactor on board, which they hadn't seen in years, apparently, because it was using old tech. Because why would you use a nuclear reactor? And they make mention a few times that they haven't used nukes at all because they didn't want to irradiate, I guess, the product even more than it already has, as the toxic radiation that spreads around all their mining stuff on this planet forces them to smoke these red cigarettes that are like, what is it, like Fallout rads pills or something.
Radaway, yeah.
And everybody dies except for one soldier on there. He's a young guy, and he's like, this guy that you're talking about, that from headquarters, that was telling you to go do this peace agreement, he's been dead for 2 years. The Alliance arrested him for like treason and killed him. So there's a whole bunch of like conspiracy stuff going on. They don't know who to believe. Peter Weller becomes under the impression that the Alliance has hung them out to dry and is basically sending them on a wild goose chase to get murdered and have them all die, to cover themselves, because the reality is there is no peace. They were actually sending those soldiers to do a big offensive to take that new planet by force. And they were gonna, I don't know, nuke them or whatever. And they didn't explain why they had the nuclear.
It was to make some sort of weapon.
Fission.
I think that's what it said.
Yeah, they were gonna make a nuke, but like they don't want to nuke their planet, or the new planet, because it would taint the whole reason of getting
it.
They didn't.
They're
really
not shipping anything out anyway. Like, okay, so yeah. Keep going with the plot. Keep going with the plot.
Sorry. I'm trying my best, because it's pretty fresh, but there is a fair bit that happens. But essentially, Peter Weller decides to take the kid that was the survivor from the plane crash with him, and through him, he's the surrogate for the audience to get to learn about the world and the war and what's happened, so Peter can do a little bit of lore dumping while they're walking through the hellscape that they're in. And he gets to learn about things like why he has to smoke the cigarettes, why are there no other civilians, why is everything all sort of glassed over and messed up. And along the trip, they see a little boy, which is already suspicious. The fuck is a little kid doing there? Everybody else has been nuked, and if you don't smoke your goddamn cigarettes, and every so often,
can I butt in here, Alex? I've never seen this movie before.
Sorry.
I knew immediately what was going on.
Yeah, I think everybody did.
Just making sure.
Again, if this had been in the 1950s when the short story was written and you saw it, I think a lot of people, it's not about gullibility, it's more that we've had so much more experience growing up with so many more stories and ideas like this, that I think if we were 12 years old watching this, like when I first saw it the first time, I probably didn't immediately know what was going on. I can
actually talk about that. I was watching this with a 14-year-old who had never seen it before.
Okay.
he immediately said that kid is not, is like some sort of evil villain, alien, or like robot. Immediately, because like everybody else on this planet was dead.
That's the giveaway. It would have been better if, it would have been better if it wasn't just one person that they found. It would have been better if there was a group of people and they're like, "What are you doing?" "We've been hiding," and all they would have had to do is have them hiding in there, and then when they look inside, have like a box or crate of just those Radaway cigarettes. Even if they weren't used, but just have them there, then you could have like in your head been like, "Oh my god, they've been surviving out here on their own." But you're also questioning, like, what are they eating? Like even as a kid, I would have started to question that, maybe just not as quite as immediately. I think, again, though, if this had been made in the 1950s or 60s, I think audiences were naive enough to not have necessarily caught on immediately. But anyway, they go to take a nap in the shade inside of a building, and the younger soldier puts on his VR I guess
goggles.
Yes, he puts on his MetaQuest 2 connected to Pornhub.
You know what? That's the second movie in the 90s that did this, because fucking Time Cop did this.
Oh, what Time Cop? Hey, what did
If I
tell
catch you fucking this machine again.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. They correctly predicted what 90% of anybody over the age of like 20 is doing with those VR headsets.
The glasses.
It was anyway. So he's in his own little world watching like. Okay, it's what appears to be like the Demolition Man sex helmet. Like the visions he was having was like that. But anyway, he's passed out, and what is it? First thing they see is like, is it a rock that turns into a bug? But then the bug itself is actually a screamer, and it's the first time that we're introduced to the fact that the screamers have been replicating to the point where they're evolving to better kill people. They're no longer just clanker, metal things underground. They're trying to replicate and look like other things. And when they kill it, he pulls it out. He sees that it has a tag from the Alliance on it. So they're still being made by the Alliance, or they're making themselves. On the back, it says Revision Model 1. From, I guess they wouldn't have had a revision at all in the originals. And as they go to meet up with the NEB people at the last known location or base of where they were, based on what they were sent in the tube. And as they walk up, the kid gets blasted with a sniper rifle shot, and like boom, and they're like, "What the?" And they go and check it. They realize the kid's a clanker, and when they pull out the kid's tag, it says Revision 3 on it, and at this point, the kid is freaking out, or the kid, I say, he's in his like late 20s, but he keeps getting referred to as like the kid. The younger soldier freaks out. Peter Weller is like, "What is going on?" Like, he's starting to freak out. He's like, "What? How is it we've never seen anything like this?" And there's some confrontation that ensues between all parties, but after they hand over the documentation saying, "Hey, it's time to meet. We got to figure out what's going on. We've never seen anything like this." And Peter Well's like, "We've never seen anything like this. Like, I've been here for years. Why the fuck am I just seeing this now?" And then they're like, "No, the kid, what they call it, David, I think was the name of the model David. They gave it." Yep. They're like, "We've seen hundreds of them," and they're like, "Why are you seeing hundreds of them? And we don't see any at our base." And they go in, they meet a mercenary arms dealer. I think that's what she's supposed to be.
Kinda, yeah. Black market something or
black market sales of things, who is stranded on the planet with them, and Weller becomes infatuated with her because of course. And while they're deciding, they're like, "We're gonna go to the base of and see if the command center even exists still of the opposing side, because the NEBs have been like completely decimated and scattered to the winds. It's only like small pockets of people that are surviving because of the evolved screamers that have been really screwing with them. And along the trip, like, he starts asking questions about what other models are there, and they reluctantly reveal that I believe it was model 2 is a soldier that pretends to be wounded. And when you get close, it basically blows up and kills everybody in the radius that comes to help it. And that's apparently how they were infiltrated. A lot of them, like, they would bring the soldiers that they thought were hurt back into the base, and they would kill their people. And then there might be more, but they don't know about them. And then it turns into a little bit of the thing where they all start accusing each other of being screamers because they don't know what they look like. And it's revealed Roy Dupree's character is a screamer. The one guy that was paranoid was not a screamer, I don't think.
Nope. Yep, that's right.
He was just a little nutty. And big shootout happens. They find that there is an escape shuttle that can take them back to Earth. And
it's a one-seater.
It's a one-seater. As they go, spoiler, the big reveal is the love interest herself is a Model 4 or something to that extent.
Yeah.
Unknown model, yeah.
Unknown model. Oh yeah, and because Roy Dupree, when he dies, he rips out his tag, and it's not the same. It's not from the Alliance. He doesn't even recognize.
Yeah,
the
it's made directly from the machines.
The machines have built their own society. They've altered it. It's no longer an alliance. It was never intended to be an alliance thing. Has no revision. It's like a triangle instead of a square with the alliance thing on, or the circle with the alliance thing on it. And he's like, "What is it?" And then they're like, "I don't know." But as they go to leave, his screamer falls in love with him, or had fallen in love, because they had evolved to the point where they could be independent of their own programming. So whatever model she was is completely independent of the initial programming, and doesn't even want to kill it. And she has to fight one of her own models. Big fight ensues. Bad model gets vaporized. Peter Weller goes into space. He's going to go home, and I guess the idea is he's going to go home and be like, "What the fuck is happening? We got to figure out, this disaster. It's gone out of control." At the same time, he was trying to leave. The idea was that the screamers wanted to find a way off the planet so they could go to Earth and basically replicate and do everything. And as he's leaving, the sort of horror movie thing is, at the very end, it pans and shows the stuffed animal bear that the little kid had held is also a screamer, and it's probably going to either kill him or replicate once it hits the Earth, and that's the end.
So
yeah, that's pretty much
so
about the long and short of
I
it.
had never seen it.
Yeah,
I had never seen this movie before.
I felt I had to go into detail about everything that happened because it is an interesting plot. And like you said, it is predictable to us because of how steeped in stories we are. But at the same time, it is much more effective and well done than I was expecting from a low budget.
I say
movie
that
of
the location shots of this movie are fantastic. I don't care if they filmed in a quarry or not. It's great. And then the matte paintings, they're composited in behind them, showing the ruined cities. Fantastic. Just really, really well done. And then you're filming inside of the one of the stadiums in Toronto there. And it looks great. All you have to do is find these really good locations, and it really elevates your film.
Apparently Dan O'Bannon wrote the script for this, and it was supposed to be made 12 years earlier.
Yeah, I think this is 1980, 81, somewhere in there, and it sat in development hell for years.
83 production was supposed to have commenced, and it didn't. So this would have been right around the same time as Dune and a lot of the mid 80s grimier sci-fi stuff. So you would have seen it basically without any of the CG that they had to put in. It would have been in completely optical effects,
which would have been great. I think it would have actually improved the movie. I every time that there was CG, I think it actually wasn't that great.
Yeah. It was 14 million didn't do jack in 1995. I felt like even having the scenes that had it, you could have cut the scenes entirely and it wouldn't have taken away from the final cut of the film even. Those few shots could have been easily shot around to avoid it, and it would have been perfectly fine. It. I know that the director, this was probably his first bigger quote unquote budget picture at the time. I had seen he directed the direct to video Scanners 2 and 3 movies.
Oh,
Which yeah, the ones that the ones that eventually became Scanner Cop and all this crap, but those two which also have a connection to Stargate, the main star being David Hewlett, Dr. Peter McKay from Atlantis TV show, as well as a few other people. And prior to this, the only like theatrical movie he had directed was Livewire, the Pierce Brosnan movie, which is fine, but action thriller. But like after this, he went on to do some interesting stuff. The Art of War, that was like the last big budget Wesley Snipes movie before he crashed out. And most importantly, Michael, something that we may have to watch, or you may have to subject Dave to at some point.
ooh, now I'm curious.
2002 spectacular Extreme Ops starring Devon Sawa.
Fuck, Blair might watch that because she loves Devon Sawa.
Extreme Ops. It was Extreme Ops, and what was the other one? There was another one from that Vertical Limit. Those terrible movies.
I love Vertical Limit, man.
But Extreme Ops was like snowboarding Fast and Furious. That's the best way to describe it. It was terrible. I think there was also another one I think that had it was right around the same time as like Simon Says and those terrible Dennis Rodman movies. So
oh my god, that's a show right there.
Well, see, I'll tell you this: Extreme Ops is worse than K2. K2 we made fun of so hard. We had to watch it in school one day. I don't know why we had to watch it, but we were watching it and we kept laughing at how bad K2 was, because anytime anybody said anything in K2 that was like, every line was delivered like what's his name? The redhead dude from CSI Miami.
David Caruso, yeah.
Yeah, every time he would say something and put his sunglasses on, like
brief pause.
Yeah, that was how that K2 movie was delivered. And every single time there was a guitar sting in the movie. Like,
what the fuck? Yeah. I'd like a taco.
Anyway, so that's something for another time. You'll have to submit them to that. But he's done like mostly direct to video stuff. It's just those were his claims to fame, is that, Art of War is not bad. It's just not great. But this movie was a lot better than I was expecting it to go back to and seeing. And if you're listening to this and you're like, that sounds kind of, it's not generic. You got to consider that this movie came out 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And 30 years ago, there wasn't a lot of sci-fi doing this. At the time, sci-fi had gone full-blown like Godzilla big monster movie stuff, or disaster. Every sci-fi movie after like Terminator 2 for a long time was either Independence Day or giant disaster movie.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of movies that dealt with robots and sentience. I think that's what really attracted this to me the second time around. Because this is only like the second time I've seen this movie, and just seeing the Jessica model develop develop sentience, and saying that she cares for Joe, I was like, that's kind of cool. I dig that. Like,
okay. And found this. So they did have it on the Wikipedia for the Screamer varieties listed. The original model was the rounded main chip, and it just says original sword model. Oh yeah, the idea was they were called swords because I
first thing we ever made, really.
Yeah, it was like the first invention weapon of man was sword, so that's what they called that. Then there was the revised one, which was the rounded chip, just said revised with software upgrades that made them smarter. And then there was the new Type 1 revised square main chip. That was the legs and a tail. Those are the ones that could be bugs, but they could also be like rocks, like they would have other camouflage things on them. Then there was Type 2, the male cyborg Becker. Yeah. Which was that's the one that was like the wounded soldier one.
The criminal guy.
Which interestingly enough, the guy who explains that it's a wounded soldier, he explains what he is, but doesn't let you know that he is, that's exactly what he is. And then Type 3 was the square main ship. That's the David one. That's the young child needing help. And then the 2 unknown types, because they had evolved beyond having it. Well, the David's teddy bear, unknown type, but I still think that's actually a type 1.
Just
It's
camouflage.
just, inside of it. And then the unknown type was the female cyborg Jessica, which had evolved beyond being, I guess, yes, they had a similar look, but the model was essentially fully sentient with its own thought processes.
Well, that, and I think at one point she says, like, we can bleed, we can sweat, we can even fuck. And then I'm like, whoa.
I liked this movie. I
Well,
really did.
I was going to say, did we ever see, in thinking back, did we ever see her smoke one of the rad cigarettes?
I see it that she smokes, but I don't know whether she smokes one of the rad ones.
No, she smokes a regular one. And you know what she says?
The American tobacco or something.
No. When she has to smoke, she goes, I haven't had one in weeks.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So they don't really say whether it's just the plain cigarettes or the rads, but that she hadn't had one of her. She's also the only one of that group that didn't look pale or sickly.
Yep. And one of the other thing I liked about the Becker robot is when he deflects to try to get the other guy killed, and he says to the group, he's like, have you noticed he keeps repeating the same thing over and over again, almost like he's broken? Because the one guy keeps saying, get off my back. And that's all he knows how to say, really, which is kind of funny. I thought the Becker model was fucking diabolical in that, because he got other people killed while hiding his true intentions right up until he kills Ace right at the end of the movie there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the movie's surprisingly way smarter than it got credit for. I think what killed this movie, I really think, is the advertising campaign, because it really focused on the Model 1 and 2s, and it looked like it was going to be like Starship Troopers, but with robots. Like, if you remember the original trailer for this, it seemed like a lot more action-packed when this is... It's got action, but it's more subdued action. It's more earned action. Like, it builds tension. Like, yeah, there's going to be a bunch of Davids swarming you, but it's going to take you 30 minutes to get there. You know what I mean? It's not constant blam, blam, blam fighting shit.
It raises questions like, why did... Okay, we forgot to mention that when this happens, they end up trying to go back to their base, and it's been overrun by the kids, essentially. And at the very end, the last bad guy sort of fight that they have is with his second in command, who was one all along, or was he?
Maybe, yeah. Sort of like he was there observing and like learning mannerisms and stuff like that.
Because he was there, I think, before. It's mentioned that Peter Weller joined 2 years ago, but he's been there longer. So their base was already infiltrated years ago. Either that, or all the people were slaughtered at base, and then they just they scanned them and used their likenesses to make new robots.
And they needed Peter Weller's command codes to get to the shuttle, because it was bio-coded.
Yeah, when they go to the escape shuttle, the girlfriend, quote unquote, says, "You mean you're the only one that can access it?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's coded to my DNA." Being the I guess the top commanding officer for that base. But yeah,
you want to hear one more thing that doesn't really make a lot of sense in the movie? And it like I stopped the movie for a second and went, what? She could have gone with him because it was life support for one, but she's not alive.
But is she drawing enough material so she could hide? But maybe. Again, that's me speculating. So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, two things. Maybe the weight would be
that's
off.
also possible, yeah.
And the other thing was, she said that they breathe, they have blood. Like, is she become too organic to have survived?
If you, like that last special effects shot, they burn off her outer skin and she's metal underneath.
So she's like a Terminator now.
Terminatrix. Oh boy.
Terminatrix. 7 years before that actually became a thing. Yeah, there you go.
But I'll say this: it was filmed, like I said, at Montreal's
Montreal,
Olympic
not Toronto.
Stadium.
I'm sorry.
So that, yeah,
Yeah.
I was going to say the Montreal one makes sense. A lot of the quarry in Quebec. I'm wondering, is is that where they filmed some stuff like Turbo Kid later on?
It
Because
wouldn't surprise me.
I would assume that the quarry is still there.
Oh
Um,
yeah. In Joliet, I think.
yeah. So there's a bunch here, and obviously I think we might have mentioned it. It's a Philip K. Dick short story from 1953. Seems to be like he was the go-to guy. Grab a short story from Philip K. Dick, make an interesting movie anywhere from the years of 1975 to 1995, right? After that, have they really adapted anything different from him since then? I don't. It's been a lot of like going back to the well of previous films and just redoing those.
Yeah, because there was obviously Blade Runner. There was
There's the new
this.
Blade Runner.
There's got you know. Yep.
Wasn't Minority Report one of his?
Yep.
So I think Minority Report might be the newest like film to be adapted that wasn't like based on another film that was already made.
You know what? I think there's a potential podcast in the future, like movies that are based on Philip K. Dick that we haven't covered.
Because
There's got to be more. There has to be more.
But if anybody is interested, the short story is called Second Variety. So if you wanted to go look that up, I'm sure you can. And again, for something that was written 40 years before the movie came out, and compared to now, we're looking at 70 years ago.
Yeah,
it's not bad.
Yeah.
And obviously the adaptation, I don't know how close to the source material it is, but I can say this with Peter Weller, he's an artsy fartsy guy. Doesn't he have like a doctorate in fine arts or something now?
Yep.
He's done, some great movies. He's done some not so great stuff. The fact that he comes out and saying it's a terrific movie, and he will constantly praise the film when he talks about it. Like, he is somebody who has turned down sequels, has turned down projects that he didn't felt have any, merit to them. You can see he was intrigued by the thoughts behind what was happening in this. And then of course the rest of some of the special effects and some of that, the little bit of TNA stuff, it's all the fluff that you need to make a movie to sell it to a market. But they're at its core, this is another one of those like The Thing sort of things, like Who Goes There, like where you could see this. And I'm surprised that when they made a sequel, it was just trash, because it sounds like the people involved in this were happy with it. But it is weird that I don't think it's as highly regarded as a lot of other Philip K. Dick adaptations.
I feel like this movie is very forgotten about. Like, I think the most memorable thing about this movie, which is unfortunate to say in terms of the general consensus, is it has a cool name and people might remember, oh, it was the one with the screaming robot. Beyond that, I feel like this is one of those sci-fi movies, arguably franchise, because there's two sequels, or sorry, a sequel. And I think that's about it. And I think that's really unfair. Like, now, as we begin to wind things down here, I guess I'll pose this question to the floor. Do you think this movie deserves a remake, or do you think it's fine as is?
Yeah, go ahead, Alex. Go ahead first. Yeah.
I personally think it's an entertaining movie. I don't know, and this will be something that Aaron can explain. Would the younger generation find this movie interesting enough to want to watch? If they weren't like already sitting down to watch it, like, I don't know if somebody would just pick this out of a streaming thing to watch. I think that there's aspects of this that could be done much better to build a much more nervous and tense energy. Like, I think the paranoia should have been played up a lot higher than it was.
Okay.
And I think it could be done relatively cheap, and I think the smart move would be to not do CG at all. Have very little effects. Like, if I were to remake it, I would not show what the screamers look like at all. Like maybe a disassembled one, but the idea would be you do the effect of them running under the ground, and then you just have like the puff of smoke explosion, people's limbs go flying, whatever you want to do. You have them get blasted where you never see what they look like. And they did touch upon it in the movie here, where the younger soldier is asking him, so what do they look like? What's it look like underground? He's like, nobody's been there since they built it. And he's like, what did he said they like pulled the cord or pressed the button to start them, and then everybody ran out and then just let them do their thing. So there is the intrigue and mystery as to what the actual like production facility looks like. So you could do things where, if I were to remake it, I would have them go into the enemy quote unquote base, go down to meet the commander, go down to the basement, and then have the big reveal be that like the enemies have all been dead for years, and you just have like you have all these families like are all down there, and it turns out that's the factory. They're all the replicated things. So you could do a lot of things with it, but I think it's good for on its own enough that I like it, but I do think you could do a lot with a remake or a reimagining.
Okay. I'll say that like my general feeling is I never want remakes of anything, even if it's bad, just because you know what? Okay, the just leave it the way it is. With that being said, this could have a new version of it made. I won't say a remake, because if you made it closer to the original short story, it would be a much different movie.
So more of a reinterpretation.
Yeah, because the original story is all on Earth, and it's the Cold War went hot between the US and the Soviets. And these things are out there because one of the sides, I won't spoil what, decided to build them. So if you did it like a weird alternate 1980s hot war going on, and you have US and Soviet soldiers that are already paranoid about each other in like a post-nuclear wasteland, having to deal with these robots that are now slowly becoming more and more human, that's a much different setting and story that you could do. There's no getting out, there's no going home, because there is no home. There's just this, and now you can't trust the people right next to you either. And that might be a much more dark or paranoid, like you were wanting film. I can see something being made like that.
I think what I want is that, my favorite Outer Limits episode, the Dead Man Switch one, where all the people and where all the people around the world are having to sit, like they sit in the base, and it's their job. Whenever a thing starts beeping, a countdown, they press the button to stop the countdown, stop the Dead Man Switch from launching all the nukes. And the idea was it's because we're at war with aliens that nobody's ever seen, and if they're parasitic and we don't want them to take over our planet, we'd rather lose the whole planet than have anything happen. And all these people in different countries, they only communicate via video conference calls to each other, and they one by one things start to happen, and they all start having malfunctions, or they start dying out, and eventually at the very end, when the one guy's about to give up and he's like, I'm not going to press the button and just let the world end, they're like, well, don't worry, they get a message from the colonel or whatever saying, you've got to press the button, we've won, the struggle was happening for years and years and years, and we're sorry we couldn't get to you, we're going to get you out of there, and we found a way to disable the Dead Man Switch finally, but you need to press the button one more time. So he goes and presses the button, stops the countdown from happening, and then when it zooms out to show the colonel, it shows that in fact aliens have taken over everybody. They're all these like parasitic worms that are in the back of their heads, and he's been under control the whole time. And I think that was like, I mean, it's simple, but that's the kind of story I was hoping to get with this. And we got a hint of it, but then they leaned a little bit heavier into like the action side of it. It became a little bit more like a blockbuster popcorn movie. But where I what I wanted was like tension, and then like twist the knife at the end and give me the like Outer Limits or like the Twilight Zone twist.
Yeah, like I'd say with me, I'd like something along those lines. Like I want something a little bit darker. Like I don't want grim dark necessarily. I don't mind darker storytelling. I love the idea of using the Davids. I love that idea of, because the least threatening thing in the world is a kid with a teddy bear. And I think right at the end of this movie where they're fighting them and they're shooting into the bunker, it's just being like, you're being swarmed by these robot drone things. I love that idea. That's a cool visual, but to build upon the tension, the threat of these things could be anywhere, they've evolved. And I know I saw like a movie, or maybe it was like a Star Trek episode or something. I can't remember what it is, but the idea that these things have evolved sentience so far that they've become independent. And I wish we could have explored that a little bit more, because I love the idea that Jessica has evolved beyond her own programming, where I'm not just going to kill you for the sake of whatever. I choose this. I love the idea of morality plays. I love the idea of sentience. One of the first phrases that ever stuck with me as a child with philosophy in high school, when I started to understand limitedly what certain philosophers mean, but the phrase I always remember is, I think, therefore I am. And the idea of self-determination has always meant a lot to me personally, that moral and ethical responsibility and just who you are, what determines you. And there's even in the Transformers fandom and how that explains Megatron has this idea where your form decides your function, who you are. And with this robot, this screamer deciding, I'm not going to do that. I want to see more of it. I want to see more of the human story, but the human story from the robot's perspective. I think that's really fascinating.
You know what would have been? I'll say my final thing, because I know we've gone on a fair bit.
Yeah,
where the twist?
It's so good.
Instead of the teddy bear, you know, it would have been a nice ending.
What?
If Peter Weller, on his way back to Earth, like looked at one of his own cuts and realized that he was a screamer, didn't know. Like, what if the reveal had been this war had been going on so long that the screamers, that there was no
knowledge had been lost.
No, there was no humans left, and it was just different factions of screamers that were programmed by both sides to keep going at each other, and none of them knew it.
That would work really well.
Interesting. That'd be cool. I'd watch that.
You could have just ended with Peter Weller looking out the glass of the shuttle with just horror on his own face, not realizing that, like, what does this mean if I'm one? How did I not know?
Yeah, that'd be, not gonna lie, that'd be pretty fucking awesome. So guys, that has been our discussion today on the two movies, Virus and Screamers. One, Jamie Lee Curtis.
One,
and the sea captain.
one exists, and the other is a preponderance of plenty of interesting ideas and inspirations.
Yeah. So guys, thank you for joining us here on Future Imperfect. We've got a lot more themed ideas, like interesting pairings. Alex has got some ideas. Aaron's come up with some cool ones. I'm sure I'll have another fever dream and put together something like I most often do here on the show when I do programming. But thank you guys once again. So if you want to interact with the show, you can find us on Blue Sky. The episode, or the links are in the episode post below. Me or Alex are on there constantly, usually me. But you can also contact us via feedback at thisweekingeek.net. We do love hearing from you. We're going to try using Instagram and Threads a little bit more, but Blue Sky's primarily our platform of communication. Just seems to be, it's accessible and full of a lot less people suck on there. So it's more fun.
At least at the time of this recording, there is a lot less negativity and a lot more positivity and optimism on there.
Yeah, honestly, most of the accounts I follow on Blue Sky are like, here is a raccoon every hour, here's a rabbit, and wholesome memes. And then, you know what? I'm here for that energy. So for This Week in Geeks Future Imperfect, from the great land of Lansing,
I'm Aaron Pollyea.
From New Berlin,
Alex, the producer.
Deep cut. And I've been Mike the Birdman, saying live long and prosper, but most importantly, be excellent to each other. We'll catch you guys again next time, right here on thisweekingeek.net.
Time. One shall stand, one shall fall. Why throw away your life so recklessly? That's a question you should ask yourself, Megatron.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass.
That's right, Mr. Peabody.
Quiet, you.
Man, game over, man. It's game over.
You don't understand.
I do. I understood that reference.
Mission successful. Shutting down.